So this is going to be a very probably going to be a very halting video, and what I mean by that is I think this is probably going to be some early tentative steps towards some larger, more in-depth concepts. But this is okay because I do plan to keep coming back to these topics until I'm satisfied with the degree to which I've covered them, even if I never reach a point of complete satisfaction. What I'm talking about here is recent thinking about, I guess talking about war games, or discussion about war games. Discussion about war games. So not war games per se, but I guess in a way how we discuss, how we may discuss war games. But I plan to actually get back to that. But I guess I'll go in a kind of order. So this, of course, is Band of Brothers. The first one, Screaming Eagles. There's some of the counters, dice. These are the maps that come with the game. Now, when I first opened this game, I don't think I had a clear idea of what the game components looked like, which is unusual, because normally I have at least some idea of what the components look like. When I first opened this, I laid out these maps. The first thing that came to mind is, why do we have yet another, okay, I'll scratch yet another. Why do we have a World War II small unit tactical game that is being raved about as being more realistic than its competition, being a breakthrough design when it comes to realism, and we have maps that instantly look like a cartoon. First thing I imagined was Sergeant Rock running across these open fields to these hand-drawn trees here. Now with the passage of time, this is really not that big of an issue for me anymore. It really isn't. Okay. Now I do look at it more as hand-drawn and not necessarily cartoony. Okay, but still, not this game, but let's just talk about some other games. There does seem to be a recent trend. Okay, there does seem to be a recent trend in maybe some pretty clear, Hollywoodized war games, where at least Screaming Eagles has a real historical box cover art, right? But some of these newer games, we're talking graphics, presentation, even game descriptions are pretty evocative of a kind of, I don't know, childish view of combat and war. Could be very entertaining. I'm sure that's the aim, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. that's the design aim, and that's what people want. They want, I guess, more of the war-themed entertainment. And also, I set a recent trend. Now, I'm going to leave open the possibility that maybe, since I'm not in any way an expert on the history of modern wargaming, maybe there's always been this subgenre inside wargaming of these cartoony entertainment, almost slapstick views of, again, combat and war. Maybe it's always been, but there are certainly some high-profile games out there that are going down this path. And again, if it is meant to serve a desire for war-themed entertainment, at least it's clearly understandable, these games and their production. But it doesn't change the fact that if designers and producers are trying to produce war-themed entertainment, that is distinct. And I guess that's really where I was going at the start of this with war games. What are they? How do we discuss them? How can we discuss them? How can we distinguish? It's kind of like, to put it bluntly, how can we systematically and usefully talk about? So I said systematically and usefully talk about the distinction. Let's say the distinction between assault, tactical combat in Europe, 1985, GDW, Frank Chadwick. How can we, again, usefully, constructively talk about the distinction between assault and Team Yankee? I didn't want to pull out Team Yankee because I don't own Team Yankee. I think that's the only game in that family of games that I don't own. I'm trying to avoid naming games I don't actually have, so I'm trying to avoid naming games that I can't pull out and check myself. Let's say, was it Test of Arms? Yeah, okay, so, that's funny, because that's both GDW and I think Frank Chadwick, actually. But anyway, still, how can we usefully and constructively talk about and distinguish assault from Test of Arms? And some might say, well, it all comes down to taste. It all comes down to taste. It all comes down to opinion. You can, I guess this line of thinking says you can say assault is realistic, but you can also say the Test of Arms is realistic. That's this line of thinking. This line of thinking might say assault and Test of Arms are just different. They're both war games. I guess this line of thinking ends up with, well, they're both basically the same, and the distinctions are not significant, I guess that would be one way of thinking. But instead of that line of thinking, I'm wondering about in some recent thinking, is looking at, well, actually I'm thinking of art criticism. Thinking of art criticism, I went to a liberal arts college. We had a mandatory art criticism class. So we had a mandatory art criticism class, and I guess if I think back, many years ago to that class, what was the fundamental purpose of the class? It was mandatory, so it was a class to introduce us to what? I guess fundamentally, introduce us to the process of art criticism And to do that, the class had to introduce us to, I guess, the concepts that make up the process of art criticism. And so really, in a sense, the class was meant to both introduce us to the discipline. It's not science, can't call it a science. It's not really a philosophy, so I'll say the discipline of art criticism. And related to that, make us, yes, very, very beginner level art critics. And I think that's pretty much just the purpose, and I'm sure that that purpose was tied into a larger liberal arts educational goal. So thinking about that class, I mean, we learned about the different schools of art, right? Why? I guess that goes down to basic categorization. Categorization or taxonomy is certainly a part of any both science, discipline. So first, just to recognize and again categorize different kinds of art, and then from there we were introduced to different fundamental concepts. Let's say beauty is the one I'm going to go with, I think, but we also looked at composition, light, perspective, right? These fundamental concepts, which are also tools in the process of art criticism. But let's take a fundamental one like beauty. And this has nothing to do with, so this has nothing to do with beauty, eye of the beholder, blah, blah, blah. So I think in some type of parallel way, that would be the idea of all war games are basically the same. It's really just an opinion, almost an illusion. So like Salt and Test of Arms, both war games. If one says Assault is more realistic than Test of Arms, then that's nothing but an opinion, which is almost like an illusion. So that's this line of thinking might say, yeah, the quote-unquote realism in Assault is just, it's basically an illusion, and it's almost a type of self-created illusion as well, on top of that. But that type of reductionist thinking, I'm just setting it aside. Just like in the area of art criticism, I'm not sure we get anywhere by saying art is art, it's all opinion, it's all the same. No point even talking about it. So beauty, I mean, this is a certainly fundamental concept. So that fundamental concept means that beauty should be, this is where it's, granted, this is going to get tricky, okay. I wouldn't be stepping through this carefully if it were blunt and obvious, but if beauty is a fundamental concept for art, then it should be recognizable kind of across the board. So it should be recognizable in different, let's just take painting, although we could talk about painting, sculpture, all the way to poetry and whatever, but let's just talk about painting. Across the different schools of painting, the concept of beauty should be at least recognizable. So this makes it a kind of meta concept, meta idea, meta concept. This certainly, well, what comes to mind is, again, I'm searching the memory banks. I'm pretty sure Aristotle had a treatise on art, right? And I think, in searching the memory, I think he was trying and arrived at what for him were fundamental principles of art that that transcended any particular piece of art, right? So, parallel here with all these different war games. Are there fundamental principles that can be pulled out and used in some way to develop a more disciplined appreciation for war games? Is what it comes down to. In the same way that art criticism done well, so art criticism done well should increase our appreciation of art, not decrease it. So if there were a concept of disciplined war game criticism, I would hope that it would expand our appreciation of war games, not decrease it. Drink break. Ow, I just smashed my cup in my teeth. So, the parallels here, art criticism, fundamental principles, art criticism, how we can critique war games. And I will, again, I'm just going to take a step forward, not having completed anything in any way, shape, or form, but I will start tentative step here. Verisimilitude. 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 You can take this concept, which might be a parallel to beauty in art. Verisimilitude can perhaps be broken down into some other ideas, concepts. So we're talking realism, we're talking credibility, we're talking believability. What are some others? I remember those three. So plausibility. So believability, plausibility, realism, accuracy. These kind of related concepts, I should say. Related concepts to verisimilitude might be a starting point for how to appreciate and critique war games. So the survivability of a platoon of U.S. M113s in a scenario of assault, or in the game assault. The survivability of a platoon of M113s in this year, 1985, should be, the survivability should be plausible, believable, accurate, in the same way. So here we have some beginning, at least a beginning framework for how we can more accurately assess and hopefully in the long run appreciate these war games. Van Velike Luki here. Looking at it here for a few minutes. I like this little Stalingrad of the North. Velike Luki, Moments in History. Game. Yeah, Velike Luki is Moments in History's trademark name for its operational level East Front war game on the battle for Velike Luki. Velike Luki introduces version 2.0 of the popular Turning the Tables, or T3, Operation Warfare system. Very nice map, by the way. I didn't even notice right away that very nice, very pleasing, but also very traditional looking map. It does seem derived from the SPI style board game map, but in any case, very nice, very pleasing, easy to read map so far. But I didn't notice right away. Look at that great hex size to counters. These counters should fit very nicely in these hexes with room around the counters to see the terrain in the hex. So yeah, I like the generous spacing here. That should be nice. So it comes with one counter sheet. I'll be getting back to wargame criticism, art as art criticism. I'll be getting back to that, but I have some other things I want to throw in here before I cut this one off. So, first of all, very nice standard, but also colorful counters here, half-inch counters. Even use different coloring for the unit values. Obviously, the unit type, NATO unit type boxes are colored. I'm guessing for formation. Haven't even cracked have not even cracked the rules for this. Just taking a look at it. One thing that comes to mind right away, especially when I look at these ski units, is that this. When I look at the map, I look at this map, and I look at these counters, especially the colored unit boxes. This is very reminiscent, look-wise. This is very reminiscent of the computer games. There was a Veliky Luki installment of the. Oh man, I don't even remember. Can't even remember the details, but they were. Well, you know what? I can't even remember enough to recount here. But if you play the game I'm thinking of, I think you'll immediately recognize the visually the similarity. Now, game-wise, I don't think it's very much like that computer game at all. Although maybe underneath the hood of that computer war game, actually, maybe that war game was inspired by the T3 series. I don't know. Of course, that's the problem with computer games, right? Very hard to see under the hood. Although I'll say SSG did a good example of giving you stuff under the hood. But that's completely off the top of my head. So the Veliky Luki credits on the back of the rules booklet, designed by Dirk Blenneman. Research by Dirk Blenneman. Playtesting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six playtesters named. Special thanks to Jack Rady and Artem Kozma. Nice small font. Looks like we got some designer notes here. Oh wow. Designer notes, quite a bit of designer notes. C3I points. I have a couple of titles from this family of themes, but I haven't played them yet. Okay, so there's historical commentary too. That's nice. So we're talking about if I take out the designer notes and historical notes, and I include the scenarios, we're talking 13, well, a dozen pages. Really, a dozen pages of rules. It is moderately small font though. Looks like some interesting. So users combat shits. Combat shits are probably these ones here. So you have these shits. It looks like you have 20 for the Axis, 20 for the Soviets. And back, you got battlefield domination, German hits, sound rangers, tank destroyers, close air support, high velocity artillery, toughness, front leadership, counter reserve, mobile battle, mission tactic, tank support 4, tank support 3, 2, 1, artillery support 2, 1, probing, rocket artillery, assault engineers, and assault guns, just for the Germans. And Soviets ambush, AT support, artillery support 1. Except those have different effects. Feint, heavy tanks, human wave, local reserve, intel randomly remove one German chick, extreme conditions, tank support 3-2, rocket artillery 2-1, artillery support 4-3, artillery support 2, vodka, tank support 1, and air support. The C3I point markers, activity points. So this is just one 22 by 34 inch map, 280 die-cut counters, one sheet, 4-player aid cards. So I don't think these go in any particular order. Stalingrad up the north, activity chart. Looks like 2 die 6, 1 C3I point spent 2 and 3, so yields a number, perhaps of activity points. So you spend C3I points, and roll on the table to get, I presume, activity points. And how do you spend the activity points? How do you spend the activity points? Random events table, attrition table, train effects chart. Activity points. C3I points. C3I points, activity points. Activity points are used to generate movements in combats. During a player segment, the phasing player decides how many activity points he spends for movement and how many he spends for combat, but the total may never exceed the amount of activity points generated by the activity table, or activity chart we just looked at. The player may even spend all activity points for movement, leaving none for combat, or vice versa. That sounds interesting. Not accumulated segment to segment. Unused points are lost. Okay. See if more comes up on that. Combat results table with dashed results. The number to the left of the slash indicates number of combat hits suffered by the attacker. Right for the defender. She looks like Advanced von Borries CRT. That just looks like that. Soviet combat shits. Okay, so these are the 20 shits we looked at. In play. Okay, so some are limited to certain game turns. Some are available, I guess, for play any game turn. And there are the effects in more detail. Queso, track, condition, setup, effects. Condition is full supply, limited supply, supply expanded. Shortage, serious shortage, critical shortage. Let's see if there's a separate rules section for that. Miscellaneous, maybe. Random events. Ski units, retreat after combat, German strong point, the Queso ability, Luki. So we have a separate rules section for that. Okay, so look in more detail when we break this one out for play. But, so we got special rules for that. CRT. Random events tables. They're random events and these combat chits. Is that right? Okay, German combat chits. The German combat chits are explained on the backside of the Soviet combat chits table. Okay, so we have the combat chits and we have random events. Okay, so here are some examples. You roll 7 on the random events table. The non-phasing player may move any one friendly unit. So that could create some friction, unpredictability. If you roll a 10, the non-phasing player receives 1 C3I point, just C3I points marker. Treat as no effect during limited activity segment. You roll a 12, the German player consults the Queso track and conducts Belikier, Luki, Garrison, release attempt. Treat as no effect. Attrition table for Germans and Soviets. Train effects chart. We have German integrity chart. Okay, by formation. And I guess what defines unit integrity for that formation, I guess. So the 8th PD. So the 83rd ID. Any 2 units organic to the formation. Yeah, okay, so they do have a summary of these historical identifications. So PD, okay, Panzer Division. Good list of historical identifications given the size of the game. German variable reinforcements. Die rolled by turn. Velike Luki strong point conversion table. Reinforcement schedule. And victory points chart. Objective. Each Velike Luki town hex. And then condition. Each Novosokolniki town hex. Obviously, Velike Luki is in the center of the map. Okay, so Novosokolniki is the second largest built-up area on the map. So actually, it's not even a full map because you have the tracks down here in the terrain key. So really, we're talking. So they're large hexes, and we're talking about 80% of the map used of a standard map sheet. It'd be interesting to get this one to the table to see how these combat chits are used, and also will be the first time I see how this C3I game mechanic is used. I don't know if this will be the first one in this family that I'll play in the T3 series. I may start with another one, but this one is in the collection, and happy I have it, and look forward to playing it.